Hi, Katie here with What's Katie Reading, and today's read is inspired by a woman I talked to who's going to be coming on the podcast. I'm really excited about talking about all things dating. And so the book I'm going to go through today is called Attached. This is based on attachment theory, psychology. Yes, I've read it. The new science of adult attachment and how it can help you find and keep love. It was a really great talking with her because it was a reminder of when I read this book like 3 years ago and I realized, ooh, I'm having some anxiety and I'm becoming attached for that reason. Mom died, divorce, a lot of things were happening in my life, and I moved from being this secure person in a relationship to someone feeling and experiencing anxiety and becoming attached. Probably because I lost the closest relationships in my life, and so I wanted to hold on to the one that I had, even though it was super toxic. And so it's cool talking to her because she was an avoidant personality, a person that wants to avoid intimacy and connection. I've dated that man. They are terrible. I had a theory that all men in their 40s were like this, but then I met Dan, so I was wrong. He's the outlier. So it goes through attachment theory, and I wanted to share a story, and I just think of that they share in here because it just hit really close to home. And if you're my friend watching this right now, you're like, yep, that was you. But it tells the story of Craig and Marcia. Craig is an avoidant, Marcia is anxious. And so from the very beginning, there were some red flags that we talk about. And when I do coaching with relationships, I'm really looking at what are your values, and are there flags showing up that this person is not going to be able to honor those values. And so here are some of the signs that she ignored early on when she began dating Craig. He ignored her when she came to cheer him on during track practice. It's a college relationship. He tried to hide the fact that they were a couple. He was surprised that Marcia stopped seeing her ex-boyfriend, suggesting that he didn't value the commitment that she was making. He made devaluing and degrading remarks about her. He compared her unfavorably to his phantom ex. He responded to her worries and self-doubts in a way that made her feel worse. Most important in all of these actions, he conveyed a strong message that he was not able to properly take care of Marcia's emotional needs. I think that's so key, is being aware of like, what emotional needs do you have and what do you need to have that partner. I'm getting ready to move in with Dan. Dan's anxieties about moving are starting to come up. My own anxieties, because I'm such a planner. Believe it or not, yes, as a former teacher, this is my like height of planning time. I want to have all my ducks in a row for the rest of the year. Like, this is how it works. So, but we're supportive of each other. And so we're helping each other. We're certainly not making it worse. Great news about Marcia. This is the chick in the story. She ends up eventually leaving Craig, and it talks through about what it means to detach, particularly when you're anxious. And it is like breaking a leg. The same parts of your brain with pain light up. It's just a different pain. And it talks about the rebound effect and going back and seeing that person. Cool little study they did with rats where they found there are 3 needs that the rats were getting from the mother, and they could replace them in 3 different ways. So they could give them food, and they could brush them, and they could keep them warm. And all of those 3 sensors would relight up in the rats. But if they saw their mother again, all of them would light up at once. There was no, I have to do these 3 things first to get that to happen. That's part of what makes it so hard to detach. And what actually happens for us anxious people in a relationship, if we're experiencing it, is that we will start to detach in the same way that the other person relationship that's already detached does. She goes on to share a story of what it looks like to be in a secure relationship and how to sharpen those skills early on. And so she tells a story of Lauren. And Lauren, on their first date, it was a romantic beach date, but he didn't make a move. And so she was kind of like, that's odd. Second date, same great date, also didn't make a move. It says she normally wouldn't have had the courage. She would have been far too afraid of the hurtful response she might get. But instead, she just reached a point where she no longer wanted to waste precious time trying to find the person. And so she just asked him. I'm looking for something, and he said, it went, like he was looking for something more platonic. Boom, she didn't waste any more mind space. She didn't waste any more time. turns out later down the road, because I think they became friends, that Ethan was actually struggling with his sexuality and his identity. Great, she dodged that bullet. And I think about when I was January, I said I'm going to date people, but only if they have a referral. And I had a friend that referred someone to me who clearly wasn't interested in me from the very get. She tried to convince me otherwise. And then meanwhile, in the background was Dan, who continuously kept showing up and wanting to go on dates. But I remember feeling that same moment of vulnerability of, I think I might be falling in love with this human. And we all know what happens once you finally have sex with them, anxious women. We might get a little attached, or just women in general. And so I told him, because he had said earlier that he doesn't believe in playing with people's emotions, that that's not something that he does. And so I gave him an opportunity to show that, and he did. Turns out he felt the same way. I didn't have the opportunity to explore what would have happened if he said, yeah, and me, not so much. I'd like to think I would have walked away. So, fun little read on attachment theory. If any of this resonates with you, it's a good read. I loved it. This woman that's going to be coming on to the podcast here in, I think, September, we booked her. She is has a degree in this stuff, and she has a really cool story of how her avoidant self, her detached self, met her amazing man who is now her business partner. So, attached, check it out. My question today, I'm always supposed to ask you a question, is where do you identify in this? Do you identify with the secure person? Did you identify with the avoidant? Did you identify with the anxious, attached? There's probably someone else I missed, but just curious for yourself.